So you want to know if you can actually afford a Bugatti. Not the fantasy version where you see a viral video of one launching off the line and picture yourself behind the wheel. The real version, the one where a company that builds fewer cars in an entire year than most factories produce in an afternoon, decides, often years before you ever sign anything, whether you're even allowed to be a customer. Subscribe before we start, because by the end of this you'll know exactly what owning a Bugatti actually costs, from the sticker price, to the insurance bill, to the maintenance invoices that make grown adults sit down, and you'll understand why the hardest part of buying one isn't finding the money. It's convincing Bugatti you're the kind of buyer they want holding the keys. Let's start with the number that ends the conversation for almost everyone: the price of the car itself. Bugatti's current flagship, the Tourbillon, carries a base price of roughly 3.8 million euros, which translates to somewhere around $4.1 million at current exchange rates, and that's before a single option is selected. Once you start adding the bespoke paint, the custom interior materials, the personalized touches that Bugatti is famous for letting wealthy clients obsess over, published estimates put the realistic out-the-door price somewhere between $4.5 and $5.5 million, and some industry reporting suggests fully loaded builds can push past that, depending on how far a client wants to go. Only 250 Tourbillons will ever be built, full stop, which means this isn't a car you simply walk into a dealership and order the way you would a luxury sedan. It's a car you're allocated. An allocation is its own gatekeeping process entirely separate from having the money. Now let's talk about what that allocation process actually looks like, because this is where Bugatti starts to resemble McDonald's screening for franchisees more than it resembles a normal car purchase. Bugatti dealers and the factory itself are known, based on widespread reporting from owners and industry insiders, to favor existing clients, people who already own another Bugatti, a Rimac, or a serious hypercar collection, over first-time buyers showing up with a check and no history in the world of ultra-exclusive automotive ownership. There's no single published net worth threshold the way McDonald's publishes a liquidity requirement, but conversations with dealers and secondary market analysts consistently describe a pattern where genuine collector relationships, letters of intent from established clients, and a documented history of purchasing similarly exclusive vehicles matter as much as the ability to wire the funds. In practice, that means a huge number of people who could technically afford a Tourbillon on paper never even get the chance to buy one, because Bugatti would rather sell to a known collector who'll care for the car and represent the brand well than to a stranger with a bank balance and nothing else. If new production feels out of reach, and for almost everyone it is, since the Tourbillon allocation is effectively closed to newcomers at this point, the secondary market becomes the realistic path in, and that market has its own brutal math. Bugatti's outgoing model, the Chiron, which wrapped up production after 500 total units built over roughly a decade, now trades on the used market anywhere from around $3.3 million, for earlier examples up to $5 million or more, for rare, low-mileage special edition variants. That means the so-called affordable entry point into Bugatti ownership is still a used car priced well above what most people will earn across an entire working lifetime, and unlike a normal used vehicle, depreciation barely applies here, since scarcity keeps these cars holding, or even appreciating in value, rather than losing it the way a typical luxury car does the moment it leaves the lot. Here's where it gets structurally different from basically every other purchase we've covered in this series, because with a Bugatti the sticker price is genuinely just the entry fee, and the ongoing cost of keeping one running is its own separate financial universe. Industry breakdowns of Chiron ownership, including detailed cost analyses from specialty shops that service these cars outside the factory warranty period, have put 10-year maintenance costs north of $200,000. And that figure includes eye-watering individual line items, like an engine rebuild running into the hundreds of thousands of dollars if something goes seriously wrong, a transmission replacement priced around $185,000, and even something as small as a replacement key costing over $13,000. Add to that a specialized tire set, since Bugattis require custom-engineered tires rated for speeds most cars will never approach, and owners have reported costs in the tens of thousands of dollars just to replace a full set, something that needs doing far more often than on a normal car given how these vehicles are actually driven. Insurance alone is its own financial commitment most people never think about until they're staring at the quote. Published estimates for insuring a Bugatti Chiron in the current market run anywhere from $60,000 to well over $120,000 annually, depending on the owner's driving record, location, and the specific coverage selected, and that's a recurring bill that lands every single year, regardless of whether the car ever leaves the garage. Stack that on top of specialized storage many owners choose to protect a multi-million-dollar asset. Climate-controlled transport when the car needs to travel to a dealer or a service center, since most owners aren't comfortable simply driving it there, and factory-mandated service intervals that only authorized Bugatti technicians are equipped to perform. And you start to see why financial advisors who work with ultra-high net worth clients generally recommend budgeting for ongoing costs equal to a meaningful percentage of the car's purchase price every single year, just to keep it properly maintained and insured. So what does the ownership experience actually feel like once someone clears all of these hurdles? For the collectors who can genuinely absorb these numbers without blinking, a Bugatti isn't really transportation in the conventional sense. It's closer to owning a piece of rolling engineering art that happens to also be capable of speeds most production cars will never touch. With reported top speeds around 276 miles per hour on the current Tourbillon and a naturally aspirated V16 engine, co-developed with Cosworth, paired with a hybrid system producing a combined output right around 1,775 horsepower. That combination of scarcity, engineering pedigree, and sheer performance is exactly why demand for these cars has consistently outpaced Bugatti's ability or willingness to build them, and why, unlike almost every other luxury purchase, values on the secondary market have historically trended upward rather than collapsing the moment the car is driven off the lot. Now for the stuff nobody warns you about before you start dreaming of an allocation letter. First, actually getting offered the chance to buy a new Bugatti increasingly depends on relationships built over years, not on simply having the funds ready when a new model is announced. So treating this like a normal car purchase, where showing up with cash guarantees a sale, is a fundamental misunderstanding of how the brand operates. Second, the ongoing cost structure means the purchase price is genuinely just the beginning, and owners who don't budget seriously for insurance, maintenance, and specialized service costs can find themselves financially strained by a car that was, on paper, well within their net worth. Third, resale and liquidity work differently here than with almost any other asset, since finding a qualified buyer for a multi-million-dollar hypercar takes time, specialized brokers, and patience, meaning this isn't a car you can simply list and sell within a week if circumstances change. Fourth, most published figures on Bugatti pricing are explicitly described by industry sources as approximate and pre-tax, since final bespoke configurations vary enormously by client, and Bugatti doesn't publish exact final invoices, so anyone budgeting for one of these cars should treat every number in this video as a floor rather than a guaranteed ceiling. So who's actually winning at this? Overwhelmingly, it's established collectors, people who already owned multiple hypercars, sometimes including earlier Bugattis like the Veyron or Chiron, before ever being offered a tourbillon allocation, and who treat the purchase as part of a broader collection rather than a single standalone acquisition. These are buyers for whom the maintenance costs, the insurance premiums, and the specialized storage requirements are a rounding error against a much larger balance sheet, and who genuinely value the engineering story and the exclusivity as much as the driving experience itself. The people who struggle are almost always those who stretch to acquire a used Chiron as a single, symbolic purchase without fully budgeting for the recurring costs that come with it, discovering only after the fact that the car itself was never really the expensive part. Okay, so let's put the real numbers side by side. A buyer entering through the used Chiron market at the lower end, around $3.3 million, still needs to budget realistically for annual insurance in the $60,000 to $120,000 range, ongoing maintenance that can average in the tens of thousands annually, even in routine years, and occasional 5- and 6-figure repair bills that come with owning a car this specialized. Now the other end of the spectrum, a collector acquiring a new tourbillon through an existing relationship with Bugatti, paying somewhere around $4.5 to $5.5 million for a fully specified build, is stepping into a car that's more likely to hold or grow in value over time precisely because of that same scarcity, provided they maintain it properly and keep detailed service records that matter enormously to future buyers. So yeah, can you actually afford a Bugatti? If the question is whether you have several $1,000,000 in liquid, unencumbered wealth, and the standing relationships to even be offered a chance to buy one, that number alone disqualifies nearly everyone who's ever admired one of these cars online, and that's by design, not an accident. The real test isn't whether your bank account clears the purchase price, it's whether you understand that you're signing up for a rolling 6- or 7-figure ongoing commitment, layered on top of that initial number, one that only makes sense for someone whose wealth is genuinely built for it. The owners who make this work aren't the ones who simply had the money sitting around. They're the ones who understood, before they ever got the call about an allocation, that they were buying into a world of specialized costs and relationships, not just a car with a famous badge on the hood. Subscribe, and we'll do this again next week, with the next opportunity that costs more than the sticker price ever tells you.